So, my name's Scott Badeau. I'm here with the Mere Mortals Mountain Biking Podcast, and I've got a very special guest from the Park Tool Company. I'll let Truman introduce himself, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Hey, I'm Truman Purdy. Thanks for having me, Scott. Really appreciate you allowing us to be here. It's Truman Purdy again, and I work at Park Tool. And my role here, I guess my title would be a technical expert. So it's a broad kind of title, doing a lot of things. So my job is to keep my fingers on the pulse of the industry, see kind of what new tech is coming out, how that tech is influencing our product. I also am heavily involved in our education as well as just as our marketing side of things. So doing video and photo shoots, helping people understand what tools they need and what tools they don't need, and then also how to use those. But also involved heavily in the, production side and the development side. So what tools, what makes a good tool, how to put that out to the public, all of that kind of stuff. Partially part of the engineering team here. But let's take a step back. How did I get into this position? Well, it goes way back, I guess, to just like everybody. Everybody's kind of got an upbringing, and mine was on a farm, rural Wisconsin, and we farmed and with horses. So there was a lot of old equipment, and we needed to do a lot of fixing. And old equipment is very much like a bicycle. Everything that's working is exposed. You can see it all happening in front of you. You pull a lever and you watch something push something else, pull something, and cause what you want to happen. That's kind of where I kind of got the start of being into mechanical stuff. Through that, having to repair equipment and stuff, really enjoyed disassembling things and getting a better idea and learning how to put those things back together. But yeah, kind of not having a lot of fear of taking things apart is important to there. I got into cycling at an early age. I started racing BMX in probably first or second grade. It was a really fun activity. I looked up to my neighbor who was really good at it, national champion, lots of awards from him. And so he took me under his wing and we raced quite often. BMX was fun. I really, really liked it, did well enough. Eventually got into mountain biking. And before getting into mountain biking, I had a really good relationship with our bike shop. And so I would go in and I would read through all their catalogs. I'd go through all the parts catalogs. I'd go through all kinds of stuff. And then I eventually needed them to fix stuff, and I would always ask favors of watch them repair stuff, getting a good understanding of how things work. And through that, got a job at bike shops, worked in bike shops through high school, got into fixing tractors and machines and cars and all kinds of stuff, went to school for automotive, industrial, and diesel repair, got out of that, got into concrete. And during school, I kind of figured that a lot of the instructors that I was dealing with were really unhappy. And so what that kind of caused me to do was look back at my previous experiences. And I looked back, and all of my experiences in bikes were really positive, and everybody seemed to be really happy and enjoying themselves. And so I looked back to that, and so I got out of the concrete and fixing stuff category there and back into the bike shop. And from there, it really I got into the really nice bike shop, Art Oils, Spokes and Pedals in Hudson, Wisconsin. And they kind of pushed me to do better and better and better. And I went to clinics. I went to open houses for brands, made connections, was doing racing all through this, mountain bike racing, cyclocross, crit racing, all through all of that, which helps foster your mechanical abilities too. Because if you're not breaking stuff, you're not really needing to fix your own stuff. And then you're just fixing other people's stuff. You kind of want to fix other people's stuff and your own stuff so that you really have an idea of how long your repairs last and how well you are at repairing that certain thing. And so through that, got into race mechanics, did mechanics at some races, met up with Calvin Jones, our Calvin Jones education guy here. And eventually he invited me to another clinic. And then from there, they had a job opening for a welder. And I was like, hey, I'd love to be a welder. And he's like, no, you wouldn't. I don't think you'd like to be a welder. So, couple 6 months, 8 months go by, and then there's an opening for this position. I
Okay.
apply, go through the process, get in here. I've been really enjoying it for the last 8 years. And thanks to Calvin and Eric here for giving me a chance. I hope it's been worth it for them. So that's kind of a little bit of a history for me. I think it's important to kind of look at somebody like where they kind of started to develop their skill set.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome. I'd not heard the farming background in any of the interviews I read about before. I'm similar, and I'm an anti-hoarder with everything except for spare bike parts and tools because, as I'm sure you experienced, the farm is oftentimes a long way from home. And so if your truck breaks down, it's either fix it or hoof it. And that's similar with bikes, right? And I carry probably more repair items on my bike than most because I want to ride back to the trailhead rather than walk. So that's awesome to hear. And then I love your motto of, not having to fix what you don't break. I do a lot of youth cycling coaching, and, there's a lot of trailside repairs needed with certain age groups. And part of the instruction we go through is that balance of having fun and pushing the bike's limits without doing something that is certain to cause a break rather than possible.
yeah, and that the roadside repairs, the racing, the farming, it kind of all comes together as like you're really, and Park Tool is a problem solving company, but it's really your ability to look at the issue in front of you, look at the resources you have, use those resources to fix the problem. So it's all problem solving, really what we're doing here. And sometimes you don't have the ideal tool to do it, but you got to look at what you have and then how to succeed with the lack of tools and lack of resources. And that goes back kind of through this. And it's something that we really try hard to look at. And when we teach people through a video or an article, which we have about, we have hundreds and hundreds of videos and hundreds of articles about how to fix bikes, how to use the tools, but all of those also talk about other ways, other methods, other tools that you may be able to use to accomplish the goal. So if you don't have a truing stand, that's not the end of the world. You could still read or watch our content and still understand and still have the resources to do it on your own.
Yeah.
So we're not trying to, trying to help you succeed in solving the problem that you have. And I think that kind of the moral of the story here is we're all just trying to solve problems, and whatever you have that's able to help you fix the problem that you have is incredible. We love, Calvin and I, we love going out to Sea Otter or other races or the local NICA races or the local NICA team hanging out there at the barn and seeing what issues they're having and seeing how they're solving those without, the fanciest resource. They don't have, X, Y, or Z. So yeah, that is all good. And the youth is really interesting because they don't have, they're not carrying around a wallet with a card or a bunch of stuff where they can just, call an Uber or something and get a quick ride home. They're having to solve their problems. And then NICA has been really good for the whole cycling industry. It's been really good for everybody.
Oh, thanks for that background. So, especially for newer cyclists, at least this was my experience, I just grabbed my bike, and whenever I needed anything, I just dropped it off at the bike shop. But I've since learned, the importance of sort of knowing how to work on your bike, including when the bike shop's, miles away because you've broken down, etc. So maybe give you all's perspective on the importance of knowing this information, ranging from, trailside repairs for things that, you need to do to get back to the car, to even things like just maintenance that helps save the life of your equipment, or even, you know, safety things like, you know, making bolt checks and that sort of thing. Those are kind of the three that I hone in. I'm sure I'm missing some as well, but what's your perspective on the importance of that?
Well, I think the importance, I think it's very important that people maybe look at it a little bit differently. It's not necessarily the importance of knowing how to repair your bike. I think it's more important to know how your bike works. You know, it's more important to know how each kind of component grouping all works, or even to take that a step back from that, understanding how a nut and a bolt, how they go together, what they can handle, all of that. I think the importance of understanding how something works will allow you to get into all kinds of situations and get yourself out of it and get back to the bike
Yeah.
shop. And it becomes more important when you're hundreds of miles away from a bike shop. We talk to people every day who are in the middle of nowhere, and they're either ordering our tools or looking for advice. And they're doing that because they can't rely on the bike shop. So they're trying to do this independently, and they're trying to make things happen for themselves um, out of necessity, which is similar to when you end up on the side of the road and your bike broke down and then you need to get it back up and going. That also, there's a level of that changes, you know, depending on how you're riding your bike. Some people start riding and they never get a mile or more from home, or 5 miles. But I know people who literally their first time, you know, for getting into bikes, their first year, they all of a sudden start riding their bike across the country, and they're like, and that person they learn
Yeah.
extremely quickly. It's forced education. You have to learn this in order to get through this, and understanding how things work will improve your overall experience with your bicycle. So I
Yeah,
think
makes
that's
sense.
kind of the core of it. Is it's going to improve your experience overall with your bike.
Well, that's excellent. I hadn't even thought about, I've been fortunate enough to live very close to some great bike shops, but that idea of learning this stuff on your own out of necessity because of the distance between you and a professional. I'm really appreciate, having grown up in a small community myself, that the internet brings a lot of knowledge on topics like this that small towns previously didn't have. What about, you know, intimidation that comes into play for people who kind of want to learn these things but find it intimidating?
Yeah, I think this is tricky because it you don't want to screw up your bicycle. Either that's from like you don't want to screw up your mode of transportation. You don't want to screw up your mode of pleasure, your enjoyment. You go out, or your exercise machine. You're kind of afraid that you're going to mess something up. So I understand people's reservation and their intimidation, but I think that through video and through a lot of through its articles and images, it kind of cuts down on that intimidation factor. Um, we see a lot of comments from our YouTube channel, and there's a lot of people who watch a video and they gain the confidence to do that repair, and that's part of our goal in doing these educational videos. It's to empower people to do these themselves, um, and that helps us in the long run. But it helps that person right there and right then. But there's some people who watch a video and they go through their entire thing and they leave intimidated, and they
Yeah.
leave and they're like, that's not something I want to do. I'm going to leave this to the bike shop. I don't know why you're sharing this information. Well, that person was intimidated, but they they almost learned more about themselves, because bike repair, I think it's something that anybody can learn. I think it's something that anybody can try to do. It's fairly accessible. There's not a ton of cost associated with it. If you go all the way into it, yeah, everything can be expensive, but it's low cost of entry. You can tinker, you can feel meaningful changes when you are start to do that work. You can find a bike on the side of the road to experiment with, or you can find a friend who trusts you enough to leave their bike with you, and then you can
Yes.
screw their bike up. I think it all starts with kind of having a bike that you can kind of mess around with. And if something does happen, you have another backup or something along those lines. But if you don't, it's a lot more important to have a resource like a YouTube channel that's responsible, because not everything on the internet is gold. Not everything out there is going to lead you to success. And I also think that that road to success involves you, the person who's doing the repair, and your belief and your confidence in yourself. Um, so I think that I don't think people should be intimidated by bike mechanics or any kind of mechanics, but I think people should maybe understand where their level is. So what can you do and what can't you do? Kind of looking in the rearview mirror, what did I experience? What have I experienced? What have I repaired? What have I not repaired? Does this give me enough knowledge to go to the next level and do this repair that I need to have done right in front of me? And I think that, like I said, anybody can do it. It's just whether or not you have the confidence attached to the abilities and the resources, meaning like tools and supplies. And sometimes tools and supplies specifically a compatibility I'm kind of thinking of, can be really tricky. And this leads to um, what I would call, I guess, being an expert doesn't mean that you always know the answers. It just means that you know where to find them. So I think learning where to find those answers is incredibly important. And so you, as a home repair person, if you have a good resource and you have a good place to find the answers to the questions that you have, you can do tons of stuff. So making sure to reach out to companies, asking
Yeah.
those questions. Companies like Park Tool or plenty of other bike companies in the industry will respond directly to emails, directly to our website or to our Facebook page or to our Instagram. Or, if you want to call in, we have conversations all the time. And so we can be a resource to you, and we can be a resource to help you through compatibility within brands and stuff, because we need to know that stuff too. Because, it's very rare that someone can kind of call up Shimano and say, hey, I've got this turny derailleur and I need to know how to adjust it. They're not going to answer the phone. They're too big of a company. They're not based in the United States. The resources they have here in the United States are technical reps basically servicing bike shops. So you kind of have to understand the limitation of that. You can't call up Shimano, but you could call up Park Tool or email us with your problems, and we can help you through that. So to reduce if you're intimidated, to reduce that, finding resources that you can ask questions of to help you succeed is an important thing. And that's something that is important no matter how skilled you are.
Yeah, and I'll just plug you guys from a phone support standpoint. My primary career is in the sort of call center and customer support industry. And so I have pretty realistic expectations on how difficult it can be to reach a live person these days in the age of pushing everything to digital self-service. One of the first Park Tool products I owned was a repair stand, and I was having problems with it. And I called the 800 number, and somebody actually answered the phone. It wasn't a push one for this and that sort of thing. And I told him I had a product question, and then Calvin answered, and I about fell off my chair. It was the first time in a very long time that my product support inquiry for at least a consumer product wasn't routed to, some random person in India, but went directly to the person that makes the product and the YouTube videos and that sort of thing. So you guys have been tremendously helpful for me with my questions about how to better use your tools. And then to your point about even watching a video and not necessarily taking an action to perform that repair, I've done that in several instances as well. Like when I see people do full damper service on suspension, I kind of think, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and keep sending that into Fox. But now I understand how complicated this fork or shock is. And I have an appreciation for, I need to keep it clean. I'm beating on it pretty hard, and there's all these little parts in there, so no wonder it needs service every year. And so I've definitely fell into that category as well. Speaking of the educational videos that you all make, they are at a very high level of professionalism versus some other YouTube videos. I always warn my kids about this. You could get halfway through the repair video and then the person basically says, "Oops, guess I did this wrong." It kind of reminds me of when I'm putting together IKEA furniture and I realize when it's basically too late that I missed a step. Versus you guys are very conscious about the steps and the order, and you kind of give a preamble, I'll call it, so that people can kind of get up to speed on the overall process before jumping in. I'm assuming a 4-minute video takes a lot longer than 4 minutes to make. So how long, what's the multiplier there of research
God.
and retakes and that sort of thing?
Oh man, a 4-minute video could take months, to be honest. I mean, it's just to be, part of it is we wear many hats. We answer the phone, we answer emails, we answer technical questions on our website, on social media, all kinds of stuff. So Calvin and I are doing other stuff. We've got a video team, two guys at our video team, and they're editing and helping us through writing scripts. But yeah, it takes very long. So 4 minutes, that's an interesting number. So 4 minutes is a tricky one because typically 4 minutes to pack a lot into 4 minutes is really hard. So at 4 minutes, it needs to be really effective and it needs to get the point across and it can't be inaccurate and it has to kind of cover all the bases. And one of the things that we, maybe not everybody loves this about our videos, but we try to be fairly exhaustive, reasonably exhaustive, depending on, our experiences and what people may or may not run into. And picking and choosing what ends up in that video it can be very hard to do. And so we might get into arguments between Calvin and I, or between the video guys and I, or Calvin and the video guys, or whatever it is, because we are so passionate that it needs to be in there. And the video person's like, I don't think it does. I don't think that this is truly important for everybody out there to get to have success. But yeah, it takes a very long time. So typically how this goes is we have there's a list of videos that we kind of want to be making going forward. And so we that video is based on prioritization, how popular the repairs might be, how attainable those repairs are. There's a whole list of different things. And then plenty of videos show up in between all of the kind of repair help videos, which is kind of what we're talking about, how to adjust a brake, how to adjust your shifting, how to change a tire. Those would be repair help videos. We also do more entertainment videos. Typically, those entertainment videos have a specific tidbit that they're trying to get across, a point that they're trying to make to help people understand or help them kind of get to the next level of education. Or some of those tidbits can be little morsels for somebody who's educating. So it can be for somebody at a bike shop who's teaching a lower level mechanic how to mechanic. But yeah, a 4-minute video can take months. I think our wheel truing videos and building videos took about a year. And that's 5 videos. And it took about 1 full year to put together. And there's a lot, getting the right angles, doing reshoots, making sure everything lines up nicely, making sure that you're not doing things out of place, making sure that you're not leading people astray. You're doing correct research, contacting companies, making sure that what we're saying is true for all equipment or most equipment at least. And then if there is something outside of what we're saying, we can kind of put in a little bit. If you have this, you might run into this issue. A lot of bicycles have some proprietary stuff. So you run into some stuff that you can't cover in these kind of broad general videos that we're trying to put out. We're trying to appeal to the masses, try to give the most people the most amount of resource possible so that they can fix their problems. So what a lot of people who watch our stuff want is they want a video for their bike, their red 2019 specialized whatever. They want a video that's that exact thing. What we focus on is teaching you how to fish. And me giving you a fishing pole, chucking that line in, just like I did with my kids at the fair the other day. We brought them to the little trout little thing and gave them a thing, and they threw in a line, and boom, they caught a fish. So they didn't learn how to catch fish. They were just given the resources that they needed to have success. But when you teach someone how to fish, it takes a lot longer because you have to go through, oh, well, what time of year is it? What's the conditions like? All of these things. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach you how to fish so that you can recognize a problem, even if it shows itself in different ways. You can recognize the problem and repair it. And that's our goal. We want to teach you how to fix your bike with what you have. And even if the repair is not directly what we're doing, it will help you if it's remotely related to that video or article.
Yeah. Well, I think you guys do a excellent job of being exhaustive enough with the scope of the videos. It would be funny if you want to add to your backlog a B-roll video of you having the argument over what should be included or not, because I certainly appreciate that. But I really do like how each video I've watched, it sort of begins with, well, if you have this type, you're going to do it a little bit different, etc. Versus it's easy to misunderstand the lack of compatibility between brands or whatever, and just to watch a video about like a SRAM brake bleed and totally blow the bladder in your Shimano lever because of the lack of context there. So I really appreciate the way you guys do it. I've heard you in the past, talk about, you all have always been passionate about education, but maybe talk a little bit about the transition from sort of building tools for shops and mechanics versus, whether it was COVID or more use of YouTube, sort of seeing more of that DIY market come into play, and how your company and your education approach has changed because of that. Because am I recalling correctly that maybe over half of your products are purchased by DIY users?
Yeah, probably about half of our products are purchased by DIY users. And this is, I'd be through a lot of tools are probably that way. So if you look at, maybe Milwaukee, I bet Milwaukee sells more tools to home users than they do to professionals, just due to there's more home users, and the home users want good tools. They want to have, because a bad tool might be more frustrating than not having a tool at all. I think a lot of home users recognize that. I think Park Tool has emphasized education for a long time because they recognize the fact that in order to have a positive experience with a tool, you need to know how to use it. And to know how to use it, you have to educate yourself. And so early on, that was to bike shops. We were primarily only available to bike shops, not to home users. And so we sold through distributors. So you could only buy from the distributor, and you can only buy from the distributor as a bike shop. And bike shops were kind of holding out at that time to, they were the ones, we fixed bikes. If you need your bike fixed, you bring it to me. That was kind of the mentality. And we've broken past that at this point. I think we've blown way past that. That was mid 20, I think we left those early 2000s. We left those behind. But I think that the education part helps us engage with our users, and those can be bike shops or they can be home mechanics. But at a bike shop, what we see a lot of times is that the bike shop itself uses our videos to educate their new employees. When there's doubt, and the boss or the service manager or the person who is taking the new mechanic under their wing, and there's some downtime, and that person doesn't necessarily have time to show them through this repair, they can watch our videos. And if a bike shop has a playlist, they can put them in front of this video and be like, okay, you've got half-hour downtime, go pump through a few of these videos. What that does a few different things. It shows them how things might be taken apart, shows them how they might be going back together. But borderline more important than that is that the mechanic is learning a lot of terminology. They can now speak more intelligently about the repair. They can speak with someone who knows more, or if they need to call in to SRAM, Shimano, Fox, whoever it is, they can speak intelligently about that. And so education has been very important to our company, both to have a pleasurable experience with our product. When they call us, they have a better terminology so we can communicate effectively about how to solve the problem that they are having, whether it's with our tool or whether it's with a repair that they're doing. In the last few years, not even in the last few years, Park Tool has almost always offered an exploded diagram of their tool. Either it came on a piece of paper with your tool on the back of the instructions, or it's available on our website. And that teaches you the terminology of the brand, what we call, this piece to our stand. This is called a lock block. So somebody calls up and they're like, I don't know, it's two pieces of metal. There's a knob on it. There's a ball on the end of it. And it's just like it's hard to have that conversation because you're like, okay, it's two pieces of metal and there's a ball on it. I don't even know where to go with that. They look at it. Okay, what is the tool that you're working on? I'm working on this. Okay, let's go to this diagram. Let's all get on the same page. We could speak intelligently about that. And that's similar to education. It's furthered the brand a lot. I think a lot. So it's been good for Park Tool. To speak a little bit to DIY home users and professionals, we sell probably about 50, maybe more to home users. And that's simply because we're showing people how to use them. And then that's not to say that the bike shops are using less. There's just not becoming more and more bike shops. There's becoming more and more home mechanics. There's really good bike shops and there's tons of really great things that they offer. But doing stuff at home is good for, Park Tool. It's good for the home mechanic and it's good for the bike shop. When the home mechanic brings their bike in, they know how to communicate what's wrong with it when they need help. And they could say, hey, here, I got into this situation. This is what happened and I need your help. Or I need to order some parts. This is what they're called. This is the exact part numbers. So trying to get everybody on a level playing field so that everybody knows how to talk to each other. That is a very important piece.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about the new mechanic education, although my son experienced that directly. So he did an internship at a local bike shop here. And do you have kids, Truman?
Yep, I've got 2 kids.
So you know the drill. Dad isn't always as accurate in the child's perception as in dad's perception. And so my son would watch varying YouTube channels on bike repair. And I would always sort of, at least when we're touching the bikes that I pay for, force us to reference you all's videos because I knew they were accurate and comprehensive. And I think that served him well when he started at the bike shop because he knows Park Tool tools, almost everything the shop has from you guys we have. And then, yes, he knew the terminology and then he knew the right way to do it rather than, YouTube can sometimes have the shortcutted way to do it. Speaking of the best YouTube videos, can you just mention where people can go on YouTube to get those instructional videos, maybe talk about when you release new stuff, that sort of thing?
Yeah. So we have a YouTube channel, about 900,000 subscribers. It's just Park Tool YouTube channel is what it's called. You'll find our most popular video is how to adjust a derailleur, flash shifting. And it's very popular. And a lot of people go into YouTube and they look at the age of things and they're like, well, my bike's 2023. Why is this 2014 video going to apply to me? Well, the core concepts are still there. This also goes to our book. We have a book that's been around for a long time. And just because the book is older than your bike, the still core concepts still apply to your bike that are taught in this book. It talks about bearing systems, how to adjust those bearing systems, whether or not you can adjust those bearing systems. It goes over shifting. It also goes over electronic shifting. It goes over a lot of different things. And it's mostly trying to get you to understand the core concepts. And when you understand the core concept, you can then go out and recognize the problem that you're having with your bike so that you can effectively fix it in the most efficient way possible. That's a good thing. The other place where you can find us and some information about us and also further your education is just directly on our website. When you go to parktool.com, it splits the screen in half. One side is for tools. You go in there, you're going to go buy some tire levers, you're going to buy a chain cleaner, you're going to buy a screwdriver, whatever it is, you can go in there. Or there's the other side. There's the fix it side. And that's where you click in and then it goes into articles. And in those articles, there are links to the video. Because every video we have, there is an equivalent article. We basically take the video and the video script and we make an article out of it. Before we were doing videos, we were just doing articles. So we have way more articles than we have videos. And they go through the ringer. Calvin wrote about everything under the sun back in the day. And so you can go in there and learn a ton of really interesting information. If you want to follow us on social media, we have Park Tool Facebook, Park Tool Instagram. Typically, those are good places to see what's new, see what's coming out. And we are constantly coming out with new stuff to try and help people solve their problems that they're having. And those problems vary drastically. And not everything that we come out with, everybody needs. But if it might help you, then you might look at buying it. But we're not saying that you need everything. Some of the things that we sell are very specifically for bike shops. Some of the things we sell are somewhat specifically more for a home mechanic. Some of the things we sell is just for a take-along tool that you can use to help repair your bike on the side of the road. So, our YouTube channel, our social medias, and our website. Our website is a huge resource that I think a lot of people, more than I think that I thought about, use it as a resource. We oftentimes, to look into maybe what videos we should do, we'll go look at some analytics of different parts of our website and say, well, how many people are visiting this? How many people are visiting this article on the website? And, our IT guy's like, well, I don't know, this particular article got 60,000 views last month. And we're like, I had no idea that so many people were using it. But they are, and that's a good thing.
So I did have a listener submitted question. This comes from one of the high school youth riders that I have had the pleasure of coaching. He asked, what makes your tools better than another brand's?
I think that there's brands out there that we are better than. There's brands out there that we are not necessarily better quality than. I think that our focus when we are developing tools is to make a very practical tool. It doesn't have a lot of stuff that's not useful on it. It's not made out of unobtainium to make it expensive. We don't want to just make it expensive to make it expensive. Some of our tools become expensive because of what they have to do. And so we're fairly practical. We make tools out of reasonable materials. We make them so they're fairly easily serviced. We make them so they're fairly attainable for a bike shop with a low budget, or a home user can purchase them and offset the cost of a repair potentially. So I think that what we focus on is not being the overall best, most awesome tool that you're just going to bow to. What we want is a tool that will stand the test of time, that will be effective. It will help you do the repairs that you need to do to get that bike back on the road. So I don't think that we are by far and away the highest quality brand out there. I think we are the highest practicality brand out there. I think that we offer education that's second to none. We put out an education product that's better than pretty much anything else out there, other than, going to a school like UBI. You're definitely going to be immersed in the education. You're going to be getting your hands on it with instructors, which there's not really a replacement for. So I think that as far as an online resource, you can't get much better. So that's kind of a little bit about how we feel a little bit about our quality. We feel that we are high quality. We are, but not excessive. We're not going to make a titanium tool just to make a titanium tool. We're going to put out a tool made out of a material that makes sense. And we're going to have that material have a coating on it that makes sense. So if it's going to be an outdoor tool, it needs to have a coating that deals with outdoor stuff. If it's going to be an indoor tool, you can use other stuff. You can use coatings, and this is all kinds of different things. So a lot of times when people look at one of our products, they're saying that's really expensive for what it is. It's only we're going to use our wheel holder, for example. Our wheel holder is basically 3 pieces of metal folded with holes lasered out of them, and it costs about $100. And so people look at it and they're like, it's so simple. I think it could make this for a lot less. But what they don't realize is that tool went through, it's not just the steel. It went through a hardening process. It then went through a coating process. It then got packaged by people right here in the back of the building. The logos were done by somebody. So there's a lot that goes into it. But the coatings and the platings and the hardening, that all has a lot of cost to it. So actually, the platings and the hardening of that product cost more than the material it did. The material that makes up the entire tool. So yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
Oh, that's very interesting, but I guess it's not all that surprising given the durability and sort of overall high quality experience I've had with your tools. Switching gears just a bit, can you offer some recommendations on tools that riders should bring along with them on the bike?
Well, I kind of want to start with spare parts. So on your ride, when you're this is difficult because everybody rides differently. But I can say with confidence, there's a few spares that you really should have, no matter what setup you have. If you have tubeless, if you have tubes, if you've got, maybe not tubular, a little different. But if you have tubes, bring an extra tube. If you have tubeless, bring an extra tube. If you have tubeless, you can also pick to bring a plug along with you. I believe that plugs can help with a lot of flats, but they're not going to be as useful as a tube in solving the big issue that you may have. There's also some education you have to use the plugs. So having a tube is the number one spare part that I believe you should bring. Quick links, another hugely important part to bring along with you. Whether or not you know how to use it is another point that I want to make. Bringing those spares is still important, even if you don't know how to install it. Because while you're sitting on the side of the road, in a place where you may or may not have service, somebody may come along that knows more than you do about how to fix your bike. So what you can do is you can lean on that person and say, hey, can you help me with this? I have everything that we need to fix it. I just don't have the knowledge. So they can go in there into your saddlebag, get the parts needed to make the repair, and get you back on the road. So you didn't necessarily have the knowledge, but you had the resources that you needed in order to get that fixed done. Patches is another one. In extreme cases, maybe a little bit longer rides, derailleur hangers, spokes. If you're doing touring, that's kind of where it kind of leads you. The longer your ride, the more you really have to think about what's reasonably going to go wrong and how far am I going to be away from a bike shop. Spares to have in your home shop, that's a lot different. I think it's very important to have spare brake pads. I think it's very important to have a spare derailleur hanger at your home shop. I believe it's still important to have spare tubes. I think it's important to have sealant if you're running tubeless. I think it's important to have, potentially tires even, and valve cores. That's another common one where your core can get either the tip can break off a bit if you run presto, or it can get clogged with sealant. So having an extra spare set of cores or a whole box of cores is a nice thing to do. Cable end crimps, um, stuff like that. Not going too crazy. You don't need to have a spare derailleur hanger, or not a hanger. Hanger is encouraged, but not a spare derailleur itself. In some cases, that's nice. So, like NICA parents out there, when you're looking at picking a bike for your kid, you might pick a bike that you might buy too, so that it would be maybe responsible to buy the same bike as your kid, so that you have two of the same bikes with the same parts. They share everything together, so you guys can go ride together. But in the event where it's the night before a race, they ripped it or derailleur off in training, you have a derailleur right there ready to go. You don't need to ride the bike the next day, but you have the resources to do so because you picked the same bike that they had, so that you would have everything that they would need in the event that they need it. So that's kind of something that we've seen becoming more and more popular is parents owning the same bikes as their kids that are racing, of participating in racing.
I really love the advice about the NICA kids or just any youth racer or hard rider having similar parts to the parent that's there to support them. I actually, especially in 2020 when parts were so challenging to get, I forced my entire family to be on the same, it happens to just be based on availability. Shimano brakes, SRAM drivetrain, different things, because I have pulled and cannibalized so many parts at so many races, even bringing a bucket of spare stuff, then the spare brakes. And so now we're pulling it off of mom's bike to go on the kid's bike, that sort of thing.
For, take along tools, tire levers, big time, very important things to bring along with you. A multi-tool. And then when I speak about a multi-tool, it's usually you've got the gamut of hex wrenches. Typically, I want at least a 2mm all the way up to an 8, typically. If you can throw 1.5 on there, 1.5mm. 1.5mm, not necessarily roadside necessity, but a 2mm now with Shimano derailleurs, 2mm kind of required. 6mm that are common, 5mm and 4mm hexes, all common. 8mm, some pedals, and you can get that all on a multi-tool. Another thing, the multi-tool you should look at having is a chain breaker, whether or not you know how to use it or not. Just like I just talked about with the spares, if you don't know how to use it, you might be riding someone who does know how to use it, or somebody might come along that knows how to use it. So getting a multi-tool with a chain breaker is a nice thing. I don't usually carry them on my road rides that are around my area because I'm just going to call for a ride home at that point. On the mountain bike, I don't want to ride home or get a ride home. I might be out in the middle of nowhere. So I always get a chain tool on my multi-tool. Those would be kind of your core take along tools. Very important, inflation device. Whether it's CO2, one of these new, battery operated pumps, or an actual frame pump or a mini pump, something along those lines. Some things to keep in mind is that mini pumps never run out of battery. Mini pumps never run out of gas. Mini pumps just continue to work. It's just keep pumping them. They can be very annoying to use, but what can be even more annoying is if you have 2 CO2 cartridges and you waste with them for whatever reason, whether you fixed your flat or you thought you fixed it and then you shoot it in there and then air just squirts out of a hole in it, or whether your inflation device just sprays all of that CO2 all over the place and then you're left with nothing. And that's where some of these little battery operated pumps can be handy too. You can pump, more than a dozen tires potentially on the single charge. So you get more than one chance. Like CO2, you kind of have one chance per cartridge. And if something doesn't line up, run into problems. So it's kind of important to kind of think about.
I definitely appreciate your advice about the benefits of a pump. The mandatory gear that I had when I led a bike team for the youth included a pump. Because, like you said, there's plenty of discharged CO2s sitting right next to a still flat tire. And so I would go around and kind of do a check on that. I really appreciate that advice. So we talked about the type of stuff to carry on the bike. What about recommendations for things that bikers should have in the garage?
I see a lot of people get into this. We have on Instagram, Ultimate Blue Tool Wall. A lot of home users have insane setups. What I'm going to talk about is kind of like your core. You should really have it. Tire levers, a good set of hex keys, not a multi-tool. I would recommend that people not use their take-along tools for home use tools. So if you have 2 tire levers that are in your to-go bag, have 2 other tire levers that are at home so that you always keep your trailside tools on your bike and you never forget them on your bench because you're gonna forget them at some point. So keep those separate. When I say a good set of hex keys, it doesn't mean so like Park Tool, we offer so many hex and torques and everything. And when you get into the really expensive ones, we have these sliding T handles and they're gorgeous and they have these spinners. They're very efficient for certain duties. But when it comes to if you're going to have one set of hex wrenches, just get a regular set of L hex wrenches. So like Park Tool HXS 1.2, it's a set of L's, comes 1.5 all the way up to 10. You're pretty much never going to run into anything where it does not fit. There are some areas where you might need some stubby ones, but that's few and far between. The sliding hex wrenches or regular T handles or something like that, they can, a lot of kind of famous mechanics or mechanics that have a big presence, they really talk a lot about their T handles or they show them off a lot. And it's because they're cool. They're really cool, but they're not more useful to you. They do the same duty and they allow you to do that duty and potentially more efficiently. But there are more cases where you can't use that tool on a sliding T handle than it is with an L set. The L set will work more often than the sliding T handles. There's multiple reasons. The sliding T handles, typically that sliding part is longer, so it can't fit into tighter spaces. Another thing is typically on a sliding or any kind of T handle, sliding or not, they're going to be a 5 mil necked, so it'll be necked up to 6.5, 7 millimeters, whatever it is, it's going to neck up. So a classic example would be on like a older Ultegra derailleurs. There, if you had a hex wrench that necked up in size, you wouldn't be able to fit that all the way in, and it would not engage with the actual hex fitting in the derailleur. So where a standard L set is 6 millimeter, so talk about a 5 millimeter hex wrench. It is 5 millimeter hex stock bent with an L in it, and it's got maybe a ball on one end. But it's the same diameter, it's the same size all the way through. So no matter what, basically, you can fit it into there. So I think a good set of hex wrenches, hugely important. Chain tool, big time importance. I think a chain checker even is more important than a chain tool, because a chain checker will allow you to monitor your chain's elongation, is what we call it. A lot of people refer to it as stretch. We refer to it as elongation, or sometimes, slip up and call it stretch. Because it's really the rollers are getting further apart from each other. It's not that the chain is actually, it is getting longer, but it's because the rollers and the pins are actually getting further apart. And it can get extremely expensive if you have to replace your whole entire drivetrain because you didn't replace your chain at an earlier date. SRAM's really thrown the wrench into this one lately. If you have SRAM transmission, I typically recommend just ride that drivetrain into the ground and replace everything all at once. And that's what you'll see SRAM recommend. They'll recommend going all the way to a length of 0.8 elongation, so 0.8%. And it's a little bit of a jargony thing, and I apologize for that. But typically, as an example for people, Shimano recommends replacing a chain at about 0.5% elongation. Um, and that's on bikes with speeds 10 speed and above. And if you replace it at that time, you can typically get 3 chain rings, 3 cassettes out of that single chain. Whereas if you go further and you go to like 0.8 or 0.75, you're going to have already worn out your chain ring and your cassette, and you're going to have to replace everything together. So the chain measuring devices can save you money. They're easy to use. It can also be a diagnostic tool. So really handy thing that I highly recommend. Tire levers, I think I mentioned, but also to go along with your tire levers and to something else that I mentioned as far as spares, but a valve core tool. Valve cores can loosen, valve cores can leak, valve cores can get clogged. So having a valve core tool, like the Park Tool VC1, super, super handy and small, each inexpensive. Highly recommend having a valve core tool. So very important there. Keeping your bike clean is also very important. There's a couple important things about cleaning, but I'll just talk about, the resources you might look into having at home to clean your bike. A bucket and a set of scrub brushes and a sponge. And, if you use Dawn dish soap, so be it. Doesn't need to be something really fancy. Dawn dish soap works great. And keeping your bike clean is important because the excessive amount of filth on your bike will exceed the wear. Another thing that cleaning your bike offers you is you're inspecting it. You're forcing yourself to inspect your bike. So when you're cleaning it, you're looking at every little part, every little nook and cranny, and then you're wiping away the filth and you're getting a better view of those areas on the bike. And you're really close to it. So it allows you to better inspect your bike. So keeping a nice clean bike is really important. So having a good brush set, having a bucket, using nice warm water, Dawn dish soap, or whatever soap you want to use, or a bike specific soap is perfectly fine.
I greatly appreciate all the advice you've given to everybody. I'm really excited to get it out. Can I just ask you a few more sort of lightning round, sort of funnier questions? Okay.
Yeah, of
So,
course. Yeah.
first bike you ever owned, what's called a first mountain bike?
First mountain bike. Oh man. Well, I gotta mention the first pedal powered bike I ever had was a green and yellow TMX trike, and it had 3-inch wide tires. It was really sweet, and I'd pull wagons with it, all kinds of stuff. My first mountain bike actually came directly after that, and that was a Trek Mountain Lion 60, and that's that's the first bike I took apart and didn't put back together. It's also the bike that I rode the most. I think I replaced the fork on it 3 times because as a kid you want to run into stuff. So me and my buddies would just ram into something and bend the fork. So yeah, I went through 3 forks on that one. But yeah, that was the Trek Mountain Lion 60, and that would have been like an early 90s one, black with purple, I think, black with green maybe. It was really I liked it. Had a lot of fun on it.
Next question is, how many bikes do you currently own versus how many does your spouse think that you own?
Oh boy, I'm pretty blatant with my wife. She tells us another bike rolls in. That's fine. She doesn't think too hard about the bike stuff because she knows what's good for her, which is good for us. But right now, I don't have a ton. I've cut down my bike buying purchases significantly since I've had kids. So about 4 years ago, significantly cut down on buying bikes. And then during COVID, I liquidated because the values were for high. So I probably have 12 bikes right now, and varying anywhere from 40s Schwinn cruiser, kind of cafe'd out, up to, custom titanium hand-built stuff, to fancy carbon stuff, to, I like hardtail mountain bikes. I have a few of those. some BMX bikes. So yeah, a lot of fun bikes
Awesome.
in the
And if
quiver.
you were a bike part, just one, which one would you be based on your personality? And
If I was a bike part, what would I be? Oh man, I that's an excellent question that I've never had even remotely asked. So if I were a bicycle part, which one would I be? I'd probably I would love to be a spoke. I'm not gonna lie. I think the spoke would be probably the most interesting thing to be. I'm not saying that it lines up with my personality, but what I want to know how much I stretch, how much because they're springy, kind of. They have a little bit of stretch, and then they relax. And so I think I would be
awesome.
a
I like
spoke.
that.
I would have a lot of friends. Most of the time I'd have 31 friends, and then we would all work together and hang out, and we get be connected to these really cool other things. This thing down here makes a bunch of clicking noises. This thing up here just gets abused and smashed on roots and rocks and stuff. I think this folk would be probably the bike part that I would want to be.
Last question in the lightning round is any plans to bring back the Park Tool toilet paper holder?
Well, I don't know. That's a tough one. Reintroduction stuff is tough. So a lot of people, like if you go to eBay right now, there's toilet paper holders on there in their original packaging, and people are selling them for well over $200. So there's a lot of people who look at things that we've discontinued and are like, hey, you should remake that. Toilet paper holder, that's probably the number one. The second to that, strangely enough, is kickstand removal tool. But I'll tell you right now, there's no plans to reintroduce the toilet paper holder. Just it takes time to put something on the shelf, have it in the inventory, and that's just not something that we're going to probably pursue again for a few years at least. There's always possibility. And then the paper towel holder, we've been asked for that, which I think makes more sense, and I could see being used by more people. But we're still not working on it.
Are you able to disclose any details on upcoming products, even vaguely?
This is gonna be weird, but everybody hates on bottom bracket. There's some exciting new bottom bracket stuff coming. I am very excited about it. I'm not gonna tell you too many details. It's just new bottom bracket tools that are gonna be very, very compatible with pretty much anything that's out there. They're gonna be the most versatile tools that have been offered for a bottom bracket ever. So we're pretty pumped about that. And beyond that, not necessarily stuff that I'd want to just kind of disclose at this point, but I would say keep your ears to the ground on those bottom bracket tools, which are also kind of falls into the same family as the lock ring tools for like e-bikes and stuff. It's gonna be sweet.
Thank you so much, Truman. I really appreciate the time today, as well as all the countless hours I've spent with you and Calvin's videos. So would you mind just ending with one more plug as to where people can go to get your book that is still very applicable despite its age, as well as those YouTube videos?
Yeah. So you can buy our book and all of our tools. If you're in the United States, you can buy them all on our website. You can buy pretty much anything we offer on Amazon. If you don't want to shop on Amazon, you can click on, so like say you're looking at a tool on Amazon, you can click who the seller is. And actually every seller that we have on Amazon has their own website and has a brick and mortar location. So if they're the only ones you can find it, you can actually buy it on their website if you don't want to go through Amazon at all. You can also on our website, you can find it elsewhere. There's a little tab for that. Like if you're looking at a product and you don't necessarily say you want free shipping, and we're offering it at $75, and there's plenty of other people who offer free shipping blanket, you can click find it elsewhere and find it in an online retailer. all the online retailers that we share on our website all have a brick and mortar location. They all have good communication. They all carry a certain percentage of our product. Um, and then just another, if you're looking for our products, we do a very comprehensive job of trying to create an even playing field. So prices are going to be very consistent. If you're looking for education, our YouTube channel is amazing. Our website is incredible. We offer on our website, you can read the article and then go back up and watch the video if you'd like. You can also on our website go down to contact us, just reach out with technical advice, and just click in there and you can ask a question and we'll respond, either Calvin, myself, Andy, or Chad. We have 4 people who will typically respond to those emails. Andy and Chad take a lot of that. If you ever have an issue with one of our tools, we strongly suggest you contact us about it. We have a limited lifetime warranty, so if your tool gets run over by a train, it's not covered. But if your tool breaks during normal use, it would typically be covered. So definitely contact us, whether it's on our, for an issue like that, go through our website. It's the best spot.
Well, thanks again, Truman. This has been awesome.